Hey, what's going on, people? Hope you guys are doing good. Today we're back outside downtown Winter Garden and we're going to be talking about the Vivo X80 Pro once again. This time we're going to be going over camera tips and tricks for video users. Let's do this. So in my photo camera tips and tricks, I went over the portrait mode on the Vivo X80 Pro and I talked about how Zeiss has their own styles. Well, this also applies for portrait video. Zeiss has a cinematic mode and it's awesome. Let me show you. In order to access the portrait video mode, you're gonna go into the camera, then go under video. Over here, you have like a circle with like a little diamond in it. Just tap on that and then select Zeiss Cinematic. What this does is it gives you a widescreen field of view, and then it's gonna add Zeiss's color science as well as cinematic or anamorphic bokeh. It looks really, really cool and it works great. You can only use it in 1080p at 24 frames per second. And you can also dial down the effect right here. You have like a little slider. So if you want the maximum amount of bokeh and like the maximum amount of cinematic mode, go to 100%. But for most people, I think 50 will be just fine. If you notice the effect is too strong, just dial it back slowly until you get the results that you're going for. So you can see right here, there's my hand. And look how great that looks. That looks awesome. Here's a few more examples in a more practical sense. Another unique thing when it comes to the cinematic mode on the Vivo X80 Pro is the fact that you can use it with the telephoto. So you can bounce into 2x and still get the Zeiss cinematic mode effect, which is really unique. This is something that I haven't seen on any other phone that has portrait mode. So you can use 1x to get a wide field of view and then 2x to get a slightly more cropped in without any huge difference in quality. I think that's pretty cool. So today is actually turning into a fun game of run from the rain because I don't want to damage my equipment here, and we got clouds merging and stuff, but whatever. Let's talk about the next feature, which is AI video. It's a great way to capture HDR video in a computational sense and get higher quality video that's not as blown out, and it also aids in night mode video. Let me show you how to turn it on. So if you want to take advantage of AI video, you're going to go into the camera app, go into the video mode, then in the bottom left hand corner you'll see a little symbol that says AI. Just toggle that on and it will let you know what it's doing. So right now it's doing HDR video, but if you're capturing video at night, it might say night. It might give you like low light video. And there are some limitations. So if I try to switch to 8K, you'll see it will kick me out of AI video. But what's great is I can shoot in 4K at 30 frames per second with AI video toggled on. So I'm getting HDR video at 4K up to 30 frames per second, but if I try to switch to 60 frames per second, it kicks me out. So you're limited to AI video up to 4K 30, but it looks great. Here's a few examples of HDR video using AI video as well as nighttime video. Let me know what you think. So the Vivo X80 Pro can shoot 8K video, and that 8K video looks fantastic. But one thing I've never seen on another phone is that you can record 8K video on the Vivo X80 Pro in not only the standard lens, but also one of the telephotos. Let me show you. All right, so we're inside the camera app under video mode, and you'll notice that I'm in 8K up at the top, so 8K 30 frames per second. And look, I can do 1x or I can do 2x, and it looks really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and start recording. And what's great is I can actually zoom while doing it. And if I go all the way up to 2x, it's still using the optical lenses, is not cropping in digitally. So, but I can continue going if I want a digital crop, like so. And it still looks pretty good. One of the advantages of shooting in 8K is that it allows you to do a lot of cropping and still maintain a 4K resolution. And what's great about this setup is you could still shoot in 2x and crop even more to get even closer to your subject without a huge difference in quality, especially if your final project is going to be in 4K. So here's a couple 8K examples in 1x and 2x. Let me know what you think about this, and have you seen this available on other smartphones? So that just turned dark real quick. We're gonna have to go find some shelter until this rain passes because it is about to start, and we'll pick it up in a minute. Let me get somewhere. So we actually had to dip into the staircase, but not before I was able to pick up a boba tea from one of the new tea places in downtown Winter Garden. I think it's called like Cakes and Tea or Sweet Cakes and Tea, but they have boba tea. Thank God we finally have a boba tea place here. But the weather started acting up again, so we had to dip off in this little staircase, but it's a great opportunity for me to show you dual view on the Vivo X80 Pro. Super useful for like reaction videos. To access dual view, you're gonna go into the camera app, then swipe over until you get to more, and then find dual view and then tap on it. Once you're inside a dual view, you could do a few things. So over here on the bottom right, we have our beauty mode stuff, and then we have the type of square or window. So you can see I have like a recording of myself going on right here for the front facing camera, and I can change that. So I can do a circle, I could do a heart, because I love you, or we can go back to a square. Up in the top portion up here, we have different grids. So we have like a more proportionate looks. We have like a square up top and a square on the bottom. Then we have the window and window view right here. Next to that, we have our frame rate and resolution, which is really strange. It's recording in 1080p at 27 frames per second, which is a bit odd. I've never seen 27 frames per second before. And then we have just our basic settings. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a recording. Oh, and before I forget, on the bottom right-hand corner, we can switch it up. So you can switch the angle or the grid or the window and window. So the picture in picture now is switched, and I have a larger picture of myself and then a smaller one of the rear facing camera. I'm gonna go ahead and switch it back. So now I'm gonna go ahead and record my reaction to this boba tea. Look at all that boba. Let me know in the comment section, do you guys like boba tea? I done asked a lot of questions in this video, so you have a lot of questions to answer. That comment section better be busy. So let's go ahead and get my reaction now. So that's pretty good. It's like a coffee tea boba. Now, I love boba tea. And that is dual view on the Vivo X80 Pro. So I just noticed when using dual view, there's like a bit of a glitch or a bug. Hopefully Vivo can iron this out. But whenever you start recording, it kind of locks the focus. It doesn't do it every time, but it's happened like 75% of the time for me. So I'm recording right now, and if I hold my hand up, you can see now the focus is working. Now watch this. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording and then start it again, and look, it's locked the focus. So now it's no longer auto-focusing for me. I'm pretty sure it's a bug. Hopefully they can iron this out, because dual view is great for reaction stuff. The Vivo X80 Pro has 3 different stages of stabilization. All 3 of these work excellent. Let me show you how to access all 3 and how each work. So to access all 3 levels of stabilization, you're gonna wanna be in video mode. And then up at the top, we have a camera with a couple squiggly lines around it. Just tap on that, and there's all 3 levels of stabilization. So standard stabilization works in 4K all the way up to 60 frames per second. If I go back to 4K 30, tap on stabilization, and then go to Ultra, now it kicks me out of 4K and down to 1080p. So now I can only record in 1080p up to 60 frames per second using Ultra stabilization. And then the last form of stabilization is horizon leveling. And you can see it kicked me out of the 1080p 60 and dropped me to 1080p 30. So it's the most restricted stabilization, but it gives you the best and smoothest footage. So you can also toggle everything off, which automatically defaults to off if you shoot in 8K. So in 8K, you get no form of digital stabilization. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back to 4K 30 frames per second, and let's go ahead and test out these forms of stabilization. So first things first, let's go ahead and test out the standard form of stabilization. This is 4K 30. So next test, this is the Ultra stabilization, shooting in 1080p 30 frames per second. All right, so last but not least, we have horizon leveling or horizon stabilization, and this is gonna be the smoothest. This is just crazy. So we're at 1080p 30 frames per second. Check this out. So a couple more things when it comes to the stabilization on the Vivo X80 Pro. If you tap on the cogwheel in the top right corner when you're under video mode, you can tap on stabilization, and that kind of gives you like a stabilization meter to let you know how shaky your hand is being. You want to try to keep the circle as still as possible, and if you move it too far one way, you'll see it kind of shift. So this is going to give you a good marker as to how stable your footage is going to come out. Another thing when it comes to the stabilization is if you notice any issues like your footage coming out a little wonky, a little glitchy, if you go into the main settings, so tap on the cogwheel, tap on more settings, you can tap on micro gimbal calibration, and this will actually calibrate the internal gimbal, which should fix any issues. You won't have to do this all the time, only if you notice issues. Just remember that. If you want to take advantage of that wide aspect ratio that you get when using the Zeiss cinematic mode, but you don't really care about the portrait video and you want to shoot in 4K, you can do do that using film mode. Let me show you where it's at and give you a couple examples. To access film mode, you're gonna go into the settings on video mode. So tap on the cogwheel in the top right, and then tap on film. And you can see immediately it stretches out the image and it applies the black bars at the top and bottom, giving you that cinematic look. You can switch from the standard lens to the ultra wide and then to the 2x telephoto. You can also switch from 4K 30 all the way down to 1080p 60, but you are limited to just 4K 30. So 4K 60 and 8K will not work when you're in film mode, but it looks really cool and it gives you that cinematic look. So here's a few examples. Let me know what you think of film mode. If you're ever in a really bright situation with lots of dynamic range, so you have really bright highlights and really crushed shadows, you might want to take advantage of HDR10 Plus to get the most out of that image or that situation. Let me show you how to turn it on and give you a few examples of like standard dynamic range or HDR versus HDR10 Plus. It's a little bit difficult to capture it right now, but hopefully we can get something so that way you can see the difference. But there are a few things to keep in mind when it comes to HDR10 Plus, and that's if you plan on putting this in a video editor, the footage might come out really flat. You'll see here in a minute. If you want to take advantage of HDR10 Plus, you're going to tap on the cogwheel in the top right, again, once you're under video mode, and then tap on HDR10 Plus. It's going to kick you out of 4K because it is limited to 1080p 30 only, but it does work. It's just, you have to be cautious when you use it. So if you don't know what you're doing, just stay away from it because you do get plenty of dynamic range just using AI video and just regular video mode. But if you know what you're doing and you want the most out of the sensor and that computational photography, HDR10 Plus does look pretty good. So here's a few examples of HDR10 Plus versus regular AI or HDR video. Let me know what you think, and are you familiar with HDR10 Plus? So the Vivo X80 Pro has several different autofocusing modes, including autofocus tracking and 3D sound tracking. Let me show you how to toggle these on and give you an example of how they work, because it's pretty cool. To access the motion autofocus tracking, you do have to be in 1080p 30 frames per second, so that is a limitation. However, it still works and looks great. You're gonna tap on the cogwheel in the top right corner and then tap on motion autofocus tracking. And you have the choice for autofocus tracking, which will automatically take care of the tracking for you, or you can do manual autofocus tracking. I prefer just to leave them both on. But if you notice there's like a weird issue going on with the auto mode, just toggle that off because manual works like a boss. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave both on. And then if you want to toggle on the 3D tracking sound, you're gonna go under more settings, and then scroll down into the main settings. And then right here where it says 3D tracking sound, just toggle that on. And what that's going to do is enhance the microphones or increase the microphone sensitivity of your subject in order to boost their audio to try to drown out the background noise. So I'm gonna go ahead and have Dennis control the camera here. That way I can give you an example of how each work. So here's an example of the autofocus tracking working. So you can see it automatically picked up my hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring it off screen and bring it on. And you can see it's automatically picking up my hand. And this will work also for my body. So if I walk out in front of the camera, you should see a box around me now. It should automatically pick me up and it should start tracking me. Now, if you want to manually autofocus track, Dennis, go ahead and tap on me, just double tap. And you should see a yellow box around me now, and it should be tracking me. And that's how the manual autofocus tracking works. Now I'm gonna go ahead and have Dennis hit the record button. And this is 3D tracking sound. So we just had like a really loud Honda or something start up. And it should be drowning out the noise behind the camera and enhancing the audio from me. And if I walk closer, it should get a little bit louder. If I back up, again, loud car, but it should be focusing the audio on me. Even if I walk away from the camera, it should be enhancing the audio, making me sound clear. Let me know what you think of 3D sound tracking and the autofocus tracking on the Vivo X80 Pro. One really cool feature on the Vivo X80 Pro is the fact that it has a built-in teleprompter inside of the camera. I've never seen this on any other phone, but it's really useful, especially if you do social media videos or YouTube videos. Let me show you where it's at and how you can use it. So check this out. Let's say that I'm reviewing this tripod and I want to showcase it on social media, like a TikTok video or an Instagram reel, but I have a really bad memory and I can't remember the exact specs. I can write myself up a script. I can tap on the cogwheel in the top right and then tap on teleprompter, paste the script right here. All you have to do is tap on the little edit button, paste the script right here, tap save. Now, watch this. When I hit the record button, it's gonna start scrolling. So now I can read off my script and all the specs while showing off the product right here. And you can see everything is just scrolling along. I can remember everything as long as I can, read properly. And I can also adjust the scrolling settings. So if I tap on the settings on the teleprompter here, I can adjust the text size, and I can also adjust the scrolling speed. So I can make it faster or I can make it slower, whatever I'm more comfortable with. And that is how you can use the teleprompter with the rear-facing camera. Let me show you how it works on the front-facing camera now. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. Now I'm gonna switch to the front-facing camera. Boom, there I am. Now I can scroll back up on my script right here, hit record, and as long as I'm wearing sunglasses so you can't see where my eyes are at, I can easily read off my script as I'm recording. So check this out. I'm reading my script, you can't tell where I'm looking, and I'm getting my words or the things that I need to say exact to the T because of the built-in teleprompter. Absolutely incredible. I love this feature. I slipped on a puddle of lightning and I lost a leg. A puddle of lightning? What the f? A puddle of lightning. With all these excellent camera features for photos and for videos, you might run low on your internal storage depending on how much you're using this camera. Well, there's a way to get better compression and save space when recording videos by switching up the codec. Let me show you how you can do that. Now, a couple things to consider before switching the codec. If you only want to use this feature for 8K video or 4K 60, it automatically records in H.265. But if you want to force H.265 for every other frame rate and resolution, you're going to go into your settings. So tap on the cogwheel in the top right, tap on more settings, scroll down until you see codec, tap on codec, and then switch to H.265. This is going to give you smaller file sizes and better compression. It's just the only thing that you have to remember is that not all computers and phones may support H.265, but if you have a modern computer or a modern smartphone, you'll be just fine. But that's how you can save a little space on your phone. The next feature that I want to talk about is auto frames per second. This feature will actually improve the low light capabilities of this phone when you're using it in video. What it does is it automatically adjusts your frame rate based on the lighting conditions. So if you're trying to record a video in pitch black and you're at 4K 30, it will automatically bring down that frame rate to 4K 24 in order to give you better low light capabilities. It works really good and it definitely does make a difference. Let me show you how to turn it on. If you want to turn on auto frames per second, again, make sure you're under video mode. Tap on the cogwheel in the top right, go under more settings, scroll down, and right here where it says auto low light FPS, toggle that on, and that's it. Now it will automatically adjust your frame rate based on the lighting conditions, and like I said, it really does work and it's very useful. So the Vivo X80 Pro has a great Pro mode for video. There's a lot of great features inside of that. So let's go ahead and talk about Pro Video mode on the Vivo X80 Pro. So accessing Pro Video mode is a little bit tricky if you're not familiar with Vivo software. What you're gonna do is go under Pro, and then at first, it looks like this. It looks like it's only for photo, but down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you have like a little camcorder logo. Just tap on that, and it switches you to Pro Video mode. Once you're inside, if you switch to 1080p, you can see you have access to the ultra wide, the 1x, the 2x, and the 5x. So you can shoot manual video in 1080p and use all the cameras on the back, which is awesome. If you switch to 4K and stay in 4K 30, you have access to the ultra wide, the 1x, and the 2x. If you switch to 4K 60, you still have access to the ultra wide, 1x, and 2x. So that's fantastic. If you switch to 8K, so we'll have to go back to 30 frames per second and then go under 8K. You can see we have access to the 1x and 2x and full manual control. Super impressive. If we switch to 8K 25, same thing, and 8K 24, same thing. So really impressive how much manual control you have given how many frame rates and the resolutions that you can switch to. Another thing that I want to talk about inside of Pro mode is the ability to shoot in log. So up here at the top, if I tap on log, it's immediately going to kick me out of 8K and drop me down to 1080p, but still log at 1080p is really impressive. And you have full manual control down here. You can switch to the 1x and 2x and capture all the beautiful dynamic range that this log format comes with. It's really impressive and just another reason why you should be trying to use Pro mode if you want to get the most out of your video. Quick fix, I had diarrhea of the mouth and I misspoke. You can actually shoot log in 4K all the way up to 30 frames per second. It's not just limited to 1080p. That's really cool. Here's an example of 4K 30 frames per second shot in log. And you can see it's very flat. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick grade. So this is the log that's been graded and color corrected. Look at all that dynamic range. Granted, it is a cloudy sky. And then this is just log turned off, regular 4K video at 30 frames per second shot on the Vivo. Let me know what you think. I think log is definitely useful. I'm gonna go ahead and toggle off log. The next thing that I wanna show you are zebras in focus peaking. So next to 8K, there's like a bunch of squiggly lines. I'm gonna go ahead and tap on that. And I can go to exposure feedback, which is going to give me zebras for exposure control. So I'm gonna go to ISO and then watch. As I crank up my ISO, you can see a bunch of red lines in my shot, and that's letting me know that it is overexposed in those areas. But you can see it kicked me out of 8K and put me in 4K 24. But if I tap on the resolution and then go back to 8K, I can still use zebras in 8K. I just have to switch back to it. It's really weird how this works. So if I tap on 8K and then do 8K 30, you can see it dropped me down to 4K 30, but then just by simply tapping on 8K, I'm still able to use those zebras. So I think it's an update that needs to happen because it's glitching out, but you could still see that zebras are compatible with 8K. You just have to switch back to it. And then if I go back under where the zebras and the exposure feedback was located, we also have exposure or focus peaking. So this is going to let me know what's in focus. So if I was manually controlling the focus, so we'll go ahead and go under the focus setting here. And as I adjust the focus, you'll see green fill the frame with what is exactly in focus. So this is great if I want to manually focus. Maybe if I'm doing like a macro shot for video, I can see exactly what is going to be in focus. So that's just a great tool. And that's just another reason why you should be using Pro Mode. I mean, factor in all the manual controls you have for exposure comp, ISO, shutter speed, white balance, your focus, and of course your metering. It's a really powerful Pro Mode. So there you go. That was a look at the Vivo X80 Pro cameras, specifically for video users. If you missed my photo video, go ahead and click the card up top. It's a great video. I cover a lot of the photo related features and really dive into depth on the cameras on this phone. It's a great phone, has great cameras, and you can capture insane photos and videos by using the tips and tricks that I just showed you. Let me know what you think of the Vivo X80 Pro in terms of its cameras. Stay tuned for my full review. If you want me to cover anything else on this phone, sound off down below in the comment section. I really appreciate you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. I gotta get out of here before I get struck by lightning because it is kind of stormy. It is definitely stormy. I'm getting out of here. I'm going with my boba tea.